topics that I'm most interested in and fascinated by is the topic of apologies and saying you're sorry. Um, I'm not exactly sure why it interests me so much. Maybe because I'm so aware and acknowledge that we're all flawed and we all make mistakes. So being sorry is an important part of life. It's an important thing. Maybe because I'm the father of an 8-year-old, right? And that's one of the things you're trying to teach. But I think there's something in like the mechanics of it, or as I would say, like the underlying math of an apology that I find really interesting. It gets to a lot of the core issues and topics that we talk about in terms of how we think, how we value things, how we assess things, because there's a lot at play, right? In the traditional sense of when somebody says they're sorry, right? There's lots of different ways you can use the term sorry, but when it's meant for, I guess it's probably most traditional use, which is you did something that you want to then apologize for, right? You feel like you did something negative in some way to somebody or some group of people or whatever it is, and you're trying to express that you understand that. And I guess even as I'm trying to explain that, you kind of see it, right? I'm tripping up a little bit on my words because when you really think about like what does sorry actually mean? Is it regret? Is it remorse? Is it meant to just make the other person feel better? Is it meant to admit some guilt on your part? You can kind of get into it, and maybe it's all of that, maybe it's some of that, and I think that's where my fascination comes in trying to understand what that really means. And I guess the last piece I'll say just up front about why it interests me so much is just how important the term is, right? It gets used a lot, and it's meant to carry a lot of weight when it's used often, right? For many of us, when we tell somebody we're sorry, even that act alone of telling somebody I'm sorry can be extremely difficult because there is some acknowledgement that you did something wrong. There is some acknowledgement that you could have been better in some way, right? That type of thing. And that can be difficult. And pride gets in the way and ego gets in the way. But at the same time, when we do say the phrase we're sorry, it is meant to mean a lot. It's meant to get forgiveness from it. It's meant to alleviate us from that guilt. It's meant to get us back on good terms, whatever it is. There's a lot of power that's in that phrase or that term, being sorry. And when I think about it, right? So considering all that, and when I try and think about it and kind of distill it down to its first principle of if I'm saying sorry to somebody, what do I actually mean? How do I know that it's actually appropriate? How do I know that it should carry that power that we're talking about it carrying? And I think what it nets down to for me is if I'm sorry about something that I did, it has to mean that if I were able or if I were presented with the same situation again, I know I would do something differently. I would take some different action, whether that be what I said or literally the action I took or how I treated somebody, whatever it might be. But I think that has to be at the core of a true apology, of truly being sorry about something, right? We all know this, right? It's cliched, and as I mentioned, I have an 8-year-old son, so you see this a lot from him and probably from me as well. This idea of being sorry, but only being sorry that you got caught, only being sorry that there's some consequence to it that you don't like. And the sorry is meant really just to alleviate you of that. Like, oh, shit, I did something wrong. I wish nobody knew about it, but they did, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, right? And you can almost hear it in the tone and the speed at which it's said, like, no, I'm sorry, just let it be done. But that's not really what a sorry is. A sorry is meant to be a much deeper, more meaningful thing. It's meant to be a communication of the fact that you've truly thought about this thing that you did, and you've considered the impact that it's had, and you recognize that the actions you took or the things you did were not the right actions. There was something better you could have done. There's something different you could have or should have done, and you now know that were it to present itself again, you would do that different thing. Right? Because that's an important piece too, because oftentimes when we're sorry, oftentimes when we do something that requires us to say we're sorry, sometimes we do it on a whim, sometimes we do it just because we weren't thinking, but often we do it because it was hard to do the other thing. It's not that we didn't know the other thing was an option, right? It's that it was hard. If I have a tough day at work and my son comes home from school and he's all excited. It's a Friday and he's happy and he's looking to play, and I'm in a shitty mood because work was tough and I have work I need to do tonight or whatever it is. And I yell at him, right? I treat him poorly in some way. I'm mean to him, whatever it is. In that moment, right? I did that because it was hard to do the other thing. It was hard for me to detach from work. It was hard for me to control my own emotions and recognize that he didn't do anything to me. He's not doing anything wrong. I'm mad about something else. So let me treat him the way he deserves to be treated. That was hard. So I took the easier route. And decided I'm just going to let my emotions run. And I'm in a bad mood and I'm annoyed and his being loud is annoying me. So I'm just going to let it all out. If I'm really sorry, if I were to go to him and say, hey, I'm sorry about that. Like I shouldn't have done that. I'm really sorry that I did that. It only means anything. It's only worth me saying it. If I can say with confidence that if I were in that same situation again and work was tough and I had a bunch of stuff I had to do and we're in that situation, I know I would be able to overcome that emotional reaction and actually act the way I should have in that situation. Short of that, I shouldn't be saying I'm sorry, because then I'm not sorry, right? Because sorry in some ways is an acknowledgement of my calculation was off. The math I ran in my decision making was off. And I should have seen that and I should have done it differently. That's what sorry means. If I'm not willing to change my behavior, then I don't actually acknowledge that my math was off. I think I did what I was supposed to do. Maybe I'm not proud of it. Maybe I don't want to say that out loud, but that's what I actually think. And I think that leads to kind of a logical conclusion, which says, if you're saying you're sorry for something, but then your actions don't change, then you're not sorry. It doesn't mean anything, right? Because that's the proof point. That's what a sorry is. That's the whole core of it. That's the essence of it. It's not just acknowledgement that you did something wrong. It's acknowledgement that you did something wrong or made a mistake or whatever it might be, with also the confidence to say that I know I would do it differently now, and I will do it differently if it presents itself again.